and welcome to another exciting video. In this one, we'll be learning how we can manage state in a React component with the useState hook. An application that responds to user input is valuable. But what do we do with that data the user has given us? This is where component state comes in. We need a place to put data that can change in our application, and we need to let React know when that state changes so it can update or re-render our app for us. In React, state is associated to components, and when the state changes, the component is updated. To get access to this state and to update it, we use what is called a React hook, which allows us to call into React from within our component and let it know that we need to manage some state. In this lesson, you'll learn how to use the useState hook to do this. Over here, you can see that we have a pretty simple form, and it's rendered as name and then a text box. Now over here, we'll do a couple of things first, like we will be ensuring that this label is for this input. So in React, what we need to do is make use of the HTML for attribute. So in HTML, we just write for, but in React JSX syntax, we have to write HTML for. So here I'm saying that this label is for this input, which has this name. Now, name needs to be an ID over here. So let's go ahead and give that ID to this. So we have this ID provided to the input. And now this label is for this input. Let's save this. And you won't see any changes over here in the output. But now these two are related. The next thing that we want to do is whenever someone types in the name, we want to show that name. So we have to handle that. For that, we will be making use of an event. So we'll say onChange event, and over here we'll have the onChange, and that will be taken care by the handleChange event. So let's go ahead and create that now. Now here we are trying to define the handleChange event handler. This is going to take one parameter called event, and in our previous example we saw that we can simply write event.target.value, and whatever changes one is doing in the text box will be reflected as the output. But in this case, it's not going to work. This component will not be re-rendered. So how we can make sure that we get whatever user is typing and also update the UI? To do that, we'll have to make use of a hook called react.useState. So let's go ahead and try doing it. So we'll say const, and let's have a state array. Now this is going to make use of the react.useState, and we will be initializing it with an empty value because it's a text box that we are trying to capture. With useState, you have various options. So you have different data types as input. Like over here, I'm passing an empty string. I can have integer or boolean value or an object literal itself or an array as well if I want to. So let's go with the empty string, and now the react.useState has initialized a variable state array with an empty string. What I want to do now is I want to get the value that this is holding. So for that, we'll say const name is equal to, and we'll make use of this state array, and at index position 0 we'll have the name, and if I say const and then say set name, and this is going to be a method provided by useState at index position 1. Now when I write it in this way, it's quite cumbersome. So what we can do is we can simply destructure it in a very nice way, and instead of having these 3 lines, what we can do is we can just go ahead with this one plain and simple line. So let's comment out these things over here and have it in this way. So we have const name set name and then react.useState. Now react.useState will be initialized with an empty string. So here whatever you see is an empty string initial value. Now let's say when someone enters something over here, we also want to show what they have entered. So what we can do is we can have the name that we have over here shown. So if name is there, then we will say hello and we'll greet that user with that name, and otherwise we'll simply say that please type your name. The only thing remaining now is making use of the setName method. So here we'll say setName, and then we'll pass this event.target.value. So what will happen is when we will type something over here, setName will kick in and it will update the component. And as soon as the component is updated, we will get the value that we are typing over here. For example, if I type John, you can see it's typing that value. Hello, John. So to review, in order to use state in a React function component, we make use of the useState hook from React. The useState hook accepts the initial value as we have seen over here. So whenever we are calling this greeting component, it is initially rendered with an empty string, and that is going to be the value for the name variable. And once we type in something, the change event occurs, and we are then using the setName to update the name variable, and accordingly the component gets re-rendered with the updated value.